Hi, it's September 25th, 2019 at 6:48 in the morning. I'm at the Charles O. Lawton Lake Boat Ramp in the Three Forks Marsh, which is part of the larger Upper St. Johns River Marsh. It's just sunrise right now, and I'm going across to the St. Johns and up to Lake Helen Blazes. So I'll take you along, see what you think. Famous Upper St. Johns River muck. I'll never come this way again. Nice alligator. Well, I just had to line the canoe over that big chunk of mud back there. I don't know where that came from, just in the middle of the canal. But this is technically just like an airboat trail that an airboat could go right over that without any problems. A canoe, not so easily. I tore my pants. I've had these pants for like 10 years, and they've held up real well. Not 10 years of canoeing, but wearing them in the rain and doing different things outdoors. It looks like I'll be getting a new pair now. So I launched today at 6:50 a.m. from the boat ramp at Charles O. Lawton Lake, and I headed southwest. My intention is to go to the levee that divides Lawton Lake from the St. Johns Canal. It's the St. Johns River, but it's not the original track. They cut a canal back in the late 1800s or early 1900s. But it's called the St. Johns. But just like 100 yards up from it, the original path of the St. Johns resumes. So my intention is to go there, portage the canoe across the levee, which I've done before at this airboat crossing. I brought a canoe caddy, but it's not going to work on this particular design of airboat ramp, which is long, like 4x4 slats, and the wheels get trapped, and it's just easier just to drag the canoe, just wet the ramp a little bit and drag it right up the wood slats. But then I'll go over into the St. Johns, and I'll go downstream, which is north. Remember, the St. Johns flows south to north. So I'll go downstream to the north to a lake called Lake Hell in Blazes, which is, that's the real name. You can look it up, Hell in Blazes. Now on some maps they're trying to clean it up a little bit by name, like a woman's name, Helen Blazes. Like if your last name was Blazes, who the heck would name their kid Helen? But it's always been called Lake Hell in Blazes. And the story behind that is that the old paddle wheel steamers that used to come up to St. John's in the late 1800s, when they would reach Lake Hell in Blazes, it was almost the last navigable part of the river. I mean, it was just this wilderness. And there was tons of floating vegetation islands that would drift around in the lake. And you couldn't tell from one day to the next how clogged it would be, if you could get through, how easy it would be to get through. So the fishermen and the paddle boat captains would cuss up a storm, and thus the name Lake Hell in Blazes. And it's probably the most remote lake in the upper St. Johns River marsh. There's not a single structure on it. There's no roads that lead to it. There's no boat ramps, no marinas, no neighborhoods, nothing. It is surrounded by marsh and forest. And for this area of Florida, it's quite a wilderness. I mean, it's not the center of the Everglades or something, but you feel like you're in a Tarzan movie when you're in there. It's really a remote lake. And like I said, for a canoeist or kayaker, it's quite a bit of effort to get in there. And even, you know, a motorboat or an airboat is going to have a pretty long way to go. They're going to have to put in up at 192 at Camp Hawley, or here in an airboat only. A motorboat you wouldn't be able to carry over the levee. But an airboat could climb up over the hill, go back down into the St. Johns Channel, and get up there that way. But those are the only two ways in. Like I say, you're not walking in there, you're not walking out of there. It's just, it is thick jungle, or it is deep marsh, and full of alligators. There's a shortcut through all these reeds, if I can find it. There's a trail, but you got to stick your nose like right in there, perfectly aligned to see it. And it may not be here. It was here last time, but it may have grown up. Oh. See it. Like I said, you got to be perfectly aligned with it. And it's just wide enough for a canoe to squeeze through, but about a 5-foot gator right off the bow, about 10 feet off the bow. He's going to spook real quick here. Bow of the canoe's almost hitting him. Well, I never did find that shortcut through the grass, but I got around it anyway, and all I found was a sleeping alligator. So that was fun, but a lot of times there's little trails that you can shave half a mile off if you know where they're at, but you come back a month later and they're overgrown. Okay, so I've made it to the western side of Charles O. Lawton Lake in Three Forks, and this is a designated airboat ramp where airboats can go up and over this long levee that forms the western shore of the lake. So now I just have to muscle the canoe up over this thing and back down the other side, which as I recall is pretty steep. And we'll be in the St. Johns Canal, and I pretty much guarantee you'll see a lot of alligators from here on out. It gets pretty wild. Hi, well, I just drug the canoe up the airboat crossing, and now the easy part. I just have to get it down that ramp, and we're in the river. I tell you, I ain't the man I used to be. Well, I got across the levee just in the nick of time, because just as I got to the bottom, an airboat came racing down the St. Johns Canal. I'm like, oh no, I know he's going to want to come up here. So I had to pull the canoe over into the mud there. I got out of the way, he went over. I should have got it on film, but I had to go up and grab the camera on the tripod so he wouldn't hit it. And I didn't think to turn it on. I already see 1, 2, 3 alligators. But we'll get some closer shots because they will be all around us. Alright, this is the St. Johns Canal. It's the canalized, is that a word? Segment of the St. Johns River. Now, where we're going, Lake Helen Blazes, is actually the source of the St. Johns now, but it used to be Blue Cypress Lake, about another 20 miles to the south. And it still originates there, but it just is cut into channels, so it's not like, you know, it's a canal, it's a channel. It's not what I would consider the original St. Johns, to be sure. What used to be the St. Johns is under old farmers' fields and stuff, but now they bought it back and are reflooding it, but they'll never return it to the original pristine condition, but they'll get close. Two big, well, 2 8-footers right here in front of me. That's a flood control dam up there on the right. You may not be able to see them with the shadows of the trees, but there's 2 8-footers about 50 and 100 yards of. Guy right there, 8-footer, just checking me out. Alright, he's a little too familiar with people. And get out of here. Boy, this guy's tame. You know, a lot of times these St. Johns gators, especially out in the remote areas, are very timid, but when you're around like a boat ramp or someplace people are at where you think they'd be more timid, they're actually come right up to you. You know why that is? Because they're fed gators. They're gators that people have thrown fish heads and stuff like that to. So I just left the airboat crossing, and this is the St. Johns Canal. That's going south, and that's going north. That's the flood control dam between Lawton Lake and the St. Johns Canal. But this right here, this is the beginning of the original St. Johns River. And it continues on for 300 miles. And right here it's probably 30 feet wide. In about 275, 280 miles, it's 3 miles wide. So 30 feet, 3 miles. Same river. He's 7 feet from me. About a 4-footer. One of these sticks is an alligator. Can you tell which one? Well, you don't get closer to an alligator canoeing than this. Look at that thing. He's right next to me, about a 5-foot alligator. Ow, 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 ow. A lot of bird life in here. I tell you, I ought to give guided bird tours. I mean, I know a lot of the species, but there's people who are much more well versed on it, but there are so many beautiful birds in here. I mean, the type of birds they used to hunt for plumes, the egrets and the roseate spoonbills and stuff, just they're everywhere. It's the easiest thing to see them. I didn't get that on camera, but that son of a gun was right there. I didn't even see him. When he jumped in the water, he was about 5 feet from me. It is shallow here too. I mean, it's like 12 inches deep. That got my blood racing. Oh, you're a tame one. That's a 5-footer right there. Right there. Right next to the paddle. Look how he's just hanging out, checking me out. Here comes the biggest hazard you face when canoeing in the upper St. Johns River Marsh. It's not alligators or snakes, it's getting run over by a friggin' airboat. Go. Grab the camera up there. One nice thing about these though is the alligators, when they go by, always, it kind of deafens them. You know, they don't, I can sneak up on them easier. I've noticed that. Minor heron, egret, snail kite, snowy egret. Beautiful. Come up right here. Oh, there he goes. There he is. There he is. I followed his wake underwater. That was pretty cool. There's a lot of big Gucci handbags floating around in this damn river. 1, 2, 3. There was a big one right up here. He just went under. And I just scared 2 off the bank right here. This guy was circling around me. Oh, fraidy cat. Oh, I didn't see you sitting there. I wish I had that on camera, but man, he was sound asleep and I just snuck up on him, but I didn't see him either until he jumped in. Ow! 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 Oh, he's coming. Ow! Ow! She's coming to protect her babies. Ow! 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 Look at this guy right here. That's a big, beautiful snail kite. He's having trouble balancing on that little tree. I see 5 alligators right now. None of them are bigger than 7, well, maybe 1 8-footer, a couple of 4 or 5-footers, and a 7-footer. There's another one just came shooting out from the brush. They're letting me get pretty close to them. And for every one you see on the surface, there's about 3 or 4 right underneath me, going underneath. The bottom of the river here is writhing with alligators. Look at all these things. Look at all of these alligators in front of me. They don't like me being in here. Look at all these alligators. I upset this little cove. Run for your life! A guy in a canoe! Oh my God! There's one right up above. He's maybe 30 feet in front of me. Oh, there's another little one just about 10 feet in front of me, swimming in front of the bow. Another one way up there that just went under. There's 2 more coming out. 2, 3, 4 juvenile alligators right in front of me. 5, 6, 7, 8. Look at that. Oh, this is great footage. Look at all those alligators. Oh man, look at all these alligators. Oh, there's one right on the shore. Look at this guy. He hasn't gone in. He's just sitting there. Look at him. Look, 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 look. Hey, Buttercup, how are you doing? Oh man, they are everywhere out here. This guy just staring me down right here. Take this thing out. Look at this guy just staring me down. One right there. Certainly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow. Oh man, I hit the jackpot here. These suckers right here. There's a lot of alligators in here. I don't see a lot of big ones. I see a lot of like 4 to 8 foot ones, which is odd because those are generally females or immature males. But you need some big bull gators to make these little gators. And I've seen, in an hour and a half, I've seen 200 alligators, and probably 4 or 5 were 10-foot alligators, which isn't even that big. I mean, I've seen verified, I'm sure, 13, 14-foot alligators. I saw an alligator once in a place that I won't disclose, but I am convinced this was a world record alligator. It looked like an 18-foot alligator, but only saw its head and part of its back, so I'll never know. There's been times today when I could see 12 or 13 alligators. I counted that many, but you know, they're going up and coming down, looking at you. It's kind of hard, but there's a couple times when there was over 10, just at one time, just looking at me. This is the upper St. Johns. Basically, due west of Three Forks or Lawton Lake, in the river, not in the canal part of the St. Johns. This is the old untouched river. Alligators, egrets, anhingas, blue heron, and I'm not sure what they call this bird, a bittern or something. It's like a kingfisher type bird, but all of these things, and then that, I'm not sure what that's that long neck, goofy looking thing, looks like almost like a roadrunner. Oh wow. And there was just 2 alligators, but they've gone under. And they'll come back up at any minute. This is a wild section of river. A snake bird. Oh, big alligator just went in the water. There he is. Oh, he's a big one. Oh yeah, this is like a 9-10 footer. Oh, this is a male. This is a big bull. He just went under. These are the ones you've got to treat a little bit differently. They can be kind of aggressive. One alligator, 2 alligator, 3 alligator, 4 alligator, 5 alligator, 6 alligator. He's just hanging out with me. Hey Smiley, you're awful brave. Feeling okay? A little peek at around the teeth. Okay, well, you have a good day, okay? I've said before, it's like the video game Pitfall out here. This guy is just too tame. Uh-oh, uh-oh, we're getting some action here. Come on there, fuzzy britches. Let's see you jump. Come on, make some waves. Oh, don't just do the old German U-boat, slowly submerge. Let's see you dive. Come on, come on! About a 9-footer. Oh. About an 8-footer, and then about a 6-footer jumped in right in front of me. They're everywhere. I just run aground. This alligator has a bunch of weaves hooked on his back. And he's trying to swim away from me, but he's like dragging all this clutter with him. This is that same alligator with all the clutter on his back, and I just turned around, and he is not afraid of me at all. I mean, he's a cute little bugger. Look at that, about a little 4-footer. You just want to take him home, don't you? Well, he's gone now. There's his trail. You can see all the debris kicked out coming out of this peat moss. Huh. He was right down there in that little canal, that little creek. Oh, there he is. He came back up. He got free of his entanglement and all the water lettuce, and he's just acting like he doesn't even care. Oh, there's a big one. There's a big one there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 alligators. 6 alligators. There were 2 snowy herons in this tree right here, and when one flew off, I saw a feather fall, and I went over and picked it up. It was in the water, but it's a beautiful white feather. I'm going to put it in my hat for good luck. Oh, you're pretty brave. You're a brave egret. I hear egret's good eating. That's about as close as you get to an egret. Oh, he was brave. Hey, Smiley. You're getting ready to jump, aren't you? This is a little guy, about 2.5 feet, 3 feet maybe. They can move fast. That little 3-footer just swam right up here to the side of the canoe. I'm going to pick him up. Hold on a second. Oh, he's got me! He's got me! Just kidding. Another airboat. That airboat just went by and alligators have already come back up. Heck, they may be so used to them they don't even go down. Either way, I've seen 2 airboats and I've been out here nearly 6 hours. Not a big deal. 3 airboats actually, if you count the one that was going across the crossover right when I was coming down the other side. That hawk. Red-shouldered hawk, I think. Oh, he is just sitting there. That was pretty cool. Ow. 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 I'm just sitting there in the mud. He just doesn't, he's scared, but he just is like, man, this feels too good. I don't want to move. A 5-foot rascal. It's enough to bite your hand off. Oh, I hit the other bank. You're gonna dive in? You gonna do the triple Lindy for me? Come on. Come on, I'm burning up storage space on my iPhone. Let's go. Do something dramatic. Do the death roll. Blink one eye. Stick out your tongue. Hold up 3 fingers. Okay, 3 claws. Sing Pavarotti's Ninth Concerto. Move at all. Man, that gator's brave and he's comfortable. Or he could be stuck in that mud. I'm not kidding about that. This mud up here is like a combination of super glue and Quaker State motor oil. I've been stuck in it myself many times. And he may be bogged down in that and he's just like working his feet trying to, I don't know, he looks pretty comfortable. So I've been out just over 6 hours and I've seen at least 300 alligators. So what's that, 50 alligators an hour? Yeah, easy. Easy. I would say maybe even 400 alligators. So, you know, it's lunchtime and I've seen 400 alligators. Okay, this is where the St. John's was turned into a canal again. So if I go to the left here, I'm headed south, which is upstream. And if I head to the right here, which is the direction we're going to go, I'm headed north, which is downstream towards Lake Helen Blazes. And we're within just probably 1.5 miles away from Lake Helen Blazes. Like 4 big alligators right down there to my left, but I'm not going to turn the camera around. You've seen enough alligators. They're pretty good size. They look like every one of them is like 8 feet. And I thought that one was right there, but it's not. Well, there's one right off the bow, about 30 feet away, but he's another little one, about 6, 7 feet maybe. Let me get pretty close. He just went under. So I had to get out and stretch my legs for a minute. So I tied the canoe up down here at the base of the levee, climbed way up here. I also wanted to see what was on the other side, and it's just a bramble of forest. So I noticed something interesting. Look at this tree. It comes up, it goes both directions, but over here, it grows around this other tree that's coming straight up. Whew, or maybe the tree came up through this one, but there's other branches wrapped around other tree branches up here too. It's like this tree is intentionally strangling all these other trees. Well, here's something I haven't done in a few years. I've climbed a tree. I'm, I don't know, probably about 10 feet up off the ground. But I pulled in on this levee and beached the canoe, tied it up, and gives you a pretty spectacular view of the marsh out here. That's the Upper St. Johns River Marsh. Just miles and miles of grass and very patchy but thick, dense areas of forest. When I climbed down from the tree in the forest behind me, I found this huge snail shell. This is an apple snail, and you can see how big it is. They're an aquatic snail, and these holes in it are from snail kites or limpkins. Both of those birds' primary diet consists of big apple snails. So it's kind of cool. I got a bunch at home I picked up that don't have the holes in them, and they're even bigger than this. I mean, you can see this thing's almost as big as the palm of my hand. It's a pretty good sized shell. But that's what snail kites prey on, and limpkins. And also, while I'm thinking about it, I brought my shotgun and my compound bow today because moorhens are in season, and I always try and take a few when I'm in here. I used to go into the place at dawn, and I would kill the 15 bird limit by 10:30 in the morning. That's how easy it is to get these things. I mean, it's really more killing than hunting. It's kind of sad in a way, but they're a tasty bird. They're easy to harvest, and Three Forks is full of them. They're everywhere. So I'll probably shoot a few here before I go back for dinner tonight. But I also brought my bow because deer, pigs, and turkeys are in season right now for bow season, and for another couple weeks. And then the rifle season will start. It depends on what area of Florida, but between October and December, the rifle season will start. So I brought my compound bow. It's an old Browning accelerator I bought when I was 16 years old. It was the first expensive thing I ever bought. It was $200, and I had a job, $3.35 an hour, which was minimum wage at the time, working at a country club. I was a busboy, and I saved and saved and saved, and finally got the 200 bucks up, and an extra like 30 or 40 for a quiver and some arrows, and I went and bought it, and I just thought I was too cool for school. I went out deer hunting. I was 16 years old. I just got my driver's license, was working that job, went out and bought myself a bow. I thought I had arrived. I still have it to this day, and it's you know, it's a piece of junk compared to today's bows, but it's a beautiful wood laminate bow. I mean, it's not a piece of junk, but it'll still kill the hell out of a deer. It's just the bows today shoot an arrow like 3 times faster than that thing. Well, I just took a break from seeing all the alligators to bag 2 beautiful moorhens for dinner. 2 hefty birds. You don't find more mature moorhens than that. Nice. There's the alligator. That is a dead alligator. Looks like he's missing his head. Look at that. My goodness. Right. He's not missing his head, actually. Just his throat's real swollen up. Alright, I had to come back around for another look at this. This is a dead alligator. About 6 feet. And it smells pretty bad. But I have the wind going away from me, which is helping, but I caught a whiff and it was pretty rank. I'm surprised he hasn't been consumed by other alligators, but typically what they do with a lot of bigger animals is they, alligators will eat alligators, but what they normally do is let it rot for a while. And I'd say he's about ready for consumption, but gee whiz, I'm having trouble controlling the canoe and filming too. But either way, yeah, you don't see that very often. That's a dead 6-foot alligator. I wanted to see if there was any arrows in him or if I saw a hook. I didn't see any damage to his body like the human, sometimes they shoot him or they shoot him with an arrow or hook him with one of these treble hooks trying to hunt him, and the alligator breaks off and then maybe it dies from the infection or something. But he may have just died of natural causes. But I'm surprised that a big male alligator or a big female hasn't come along and just eaten him in like 2 bites. Well, we made it to Lake Helen Blazes. Here it is behind me. I'm about halfway up the west bank. I saw 3 big alligators on some floating islands of vegetation, and then I come in here and I see like a 12, 13 footer. And that's why I'm sitting down actually in the canoe, because when I'm around one that big, I want to give myself some defilade and keep a low profile just in case he wants to jump up and grab me. And they're damn sure capable of that. If you doubt that, watch some YouTube videos of Gatorland's Gator Jumparoo show, where they're dangling the chickens over the pool and the alligators are jumping up and grabbing them. They say an adult alligator can jump 2/3 of its body length straight up and grab prey. So a 10-foot alligator could jump 7 feet straight up and snatch a bird off a limb. Now, they don't do it often. I've certainly never seen it myself other than at Gatorland, St. Augustine Alligator Farm, and shows like that where they've trained the alligators. But are they capable of it? Oh, they're definitely capable of it. And so that kind of freaks me out here. There's no one to hear you scream in this place. As I mentioned, there's nothing on this lake at all. There's no structures, there's no roads that come into it, there's no hiking trails that come into it, there's no dirt bike paths that come into it, there's no boat ramps, no docks, no houses, no businesses, of course. There is this little structure over here, but it's a pontoon boat with a floating like a little shack on top of it, and it's tethered to a tree. But I actually think maybe that was put there by the FWC for a shelter for boaters if you get caught in a thunderstorm or something. So anyway, I'm going to turn around, and I've done about 8.5 miles to get here, but I actually did a couple of little side trips, about a half mile down 2 different canals that I wanted to check out, and bulldozer camp and stuff like that. And I didn't really film it at all because it doesn't pertain to Lake Helen Blazes, but I basically have to do what took me 8 hours to get here, I have to do in 4 hours to get back before dark. So I won't be messing around or filming much on the way back, but thanks for coming along. Here's the Lake Helen Blazes alligator just checking me out. Got his mouth open. Look at those 80 teeth. Look at that. Right here. I'm still sitting down on the floor of the canoe too, and I see this rascal. About a 6-7 footer. Definitely enough to put a hurting on you. He wouldn't be able to pull me off this canoe, but he could take your arm off with that. The American alligator has one of the hardest bites in the animal world, much harder than a lion or a tiger. Much harder. I mean multiple times, like 2 or 3 times as hard. Look at that rascal. That's a beautiful alligator. He's got kind of a gray hide to him instead of a pure black like they get when they get real mature. What a beautiful alligator. Getting pretty windy out here. He is so chill. Look at this guy. He's just like, man, don't make me go in the water. Feels too good out here. Well, right when I said that and turned off the camera, he jumped in the water. There he is. He's just sitting right there. Sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to mess up your nap. I really didn't. Just want to get some pictures of you. Well, I'll probably never see you again, but have a good life. Be careful of the alligator hunters. Definitely want to see some more alligators here if I can. Get them on camera. And I'm approaching the southwest side of, there's one up there in the water. I'm approaching the southwest side of the lake, and yeah, I'll show you some of these floating islands of vegetation if I have enough storage left on my phone. Oh, here's some of the floating islands that Lake Helen Blazes used to be famous for and infuriated so many riverboat captains. They're still in here, but they're not as bad as they were. Well, I'm just turning back into the St. John, so this is probably my last Lake Helen Blazes alligator I'll see for a while. About a 5-footer, 6-footer maybe. And the way you guesstimate an alligator's length, by the way, is the distance from the tip of the snout to the top of the eyes. If it's 6 inches, it should be a 6-foot alligator. If it's 10 inches, a 10-foot alligator, and so forth. Now, that doesn't always work because a lot of the big gators especially are missing a foot or two at the back of their tail from being in fights. But it's a pretty good, pretty accurate method. 7-footer just staring me down. There's another big one right up here on the bank. But I don't have the tripod set up and the wind's blowing me around. Well, the wind is really kicking up. I'm about halfway back and I'm going to have a headwind now. Can't believe it. So I just crossed the levee for my second time today. Crossed at about 8 o'clock this morning, and it's almost 6 p.m. And I'm back in Lawton Lake. A little bit sunburned, but did about 16, maybe 17 miles. It's 14 miles to Lake Helen Blazes and back, but I went halfway up the lake and across and then down to the very bottom. Then I went down some other canals too, just maybe 500 yards to check them out, places I've never been, I didn't record. So probably close to 17 miles and 2 fairly laborious portages. They're not a long way, you know, they're like 70 yards, but man, you got to go up those inclines. It's a killer. But had a great day, got some good video, and thanks for coming along. Next time you drag the canoe over that.